I highly doubt I'm the first one to stumble across this idea like a teenage farmer's son stumbled across Cornhub, but has anyone else had the thought that John Wick at its core is a video game series? The hero's world is shaken by an event forcing him into action. In the first film, his dog is murdered, which compares to the princess being captured like Mario forgetting to install an ADT system, and the hero will stop at nothing to achieve his goal like a brown-nosing secretary. And Wick is a nigh unstoppable, albeit vulnerable, powerhouse even by the world standard, like Terra dual-wielding both the Atma weapon and Ragnarok. Alright, so maybe it is the most basic correlation to video games, but these films began with the death of a puppy which sent John Wick into a bloodlust that wouldn't end until everything in his path had more holes in it than Swiss cheese and made Theon Greyjoy look like a 2-year-old discovered a can of cranberry sauce. And even that never stopped, with Wick having dished out so much death and carnage in these films with such a refusal to die, you would be hard-pressed to convince me that he isn't an amalgamation of video game characters. Seriously, he has Link's courage, Doomguy's lack of mercy, Samus's stoicism, and Ezio's determination. John Wick is a video game protagonist, change my mind. Nonetheless, John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum is not only a mouthful to say, let alone 3 times fast, but begins shortly after the ending of Chapter 2. Although Chapter 2 did end on clear blue skies without a cloud in sight, while Chapter 3 begins during a downpour like New York was the welcome wagon for another hurricane. So fuck continuity, am I right? Then again, the whole current trilogy has as little story as the entirety of the Quake series, but equivalent violence, so what the hell? Wick has become excommunicado and must do something. He eventually gives his reason to keep going while practicing rule number 2 double tap, which brings up an interesting question about this world. If John Wick is more feared than BJ Blazkowicz stopping by during Oktoberfest, why does any one of the bajillion assassins in New York think they can kill John fucking Wick is beyond me when every one of them just adds to his high score. He still has more combat skills than Joanna Dark, and you're the NPCs. He isn't trapped on Manhattan Island with you, you're trapped with him, and he's in Dark Souls mode. Speaking of boss rushing half of New York, like Dr. Wily's millionth base, the action scenes are the main reason to see this film, let alone series. The action scenes are skillfully choreographed with great wide shots that can even fit my ex's ass. Steady camera work, which allows us to take in what is happening instead of shaking the camera so much that it looks like you duct taped it to a vibrator, set it to high, and threw it in the seat of a Jeep on an off-road trek over the Appalachian Mountains. And coordinated fight scenes that put the John Wick series a few levels ahead of the vast majority of action films in the last decade. However, there is a consistent problem in every fight scene, to my recollection, where characters just leave themselves wide open, like Zelda after she's fed up with Link not rescuing her while he's off learning a new song. Seriously, these guys are just sitting around groaning while Wick takes the time to rearrange someone else's face for a moment, which leaves Wick wide open for a kill shot, like that brief window of opportunity you need to get that last uppercut against Shao Kahn. There are other issues, like during numerous massacres of extras which are left looking like pretzels covered in ketchup, that doesn't seem to alarm anyone in New York, like at all. There's a scene where assassins assassinate assassins in a crowded shoulder-to-shoulder hallway and no one bats an eye. Or my favorite scene, because it made me laugh so hard. There is a moment where someone runs around a corner to take cover during a siege, and from out of fucking nowhere, this guy leans over out of the shadows and stabs him in the head. So you're telling me that this one guy managed to sneak past everyone in this siege, sat in the only dark corner of the room like Smeagol with a dunce cap on top of lockers just for this one kill shot? Then hides back in the corner like a xenomorph blending into the nest walls? Don't get me wrong, I found it hilarious because it's just so cartoony, but I'm already suspending a hell of a lot of belief here that these guys armed with guns are somehow being slaughtered by dudes with swords, movie. You don't have to try this hard. Overall, John Wick Chapter 3 is at least enjoyable. Chapter 1 is the best by a wide margin, balancing narrative and action, as well as Doomguy contains his murder boner during a funeral, and while Chapter 2 was a bit lacking in narrative, it more than made up in action. Though Chapter 3 is closer in narrative to Chapter 1, the action scenes, while great, are sloppier in execution. The ending is a bit deflated like a Patriots football. Some character choices make no sense, like why would anyone ever trust the fucking Empire? The action scenes are more tired than before, but we as the audience are on our third sloppier seconds with this series, and we haven't needed Viagra to keep going, so what the hell? This series must be doing something right that tickles our fancy, like Yoshi going down on Peach.